Welcome to Your Reset with Christiane Piano, where the purpose is to support you in releasing all that you are not, so the truth of who you really are can emerge. This is accomplished through working with the body-mind from an ontological perspective. We use various modalities to support you in supporting yourself exactly where you are, so that you may return to an experience of wholeness and ease, moment by moment. Deep reflection is one of the greatest tools through which to do this. To take a moment, to pause, assess, reflect, and literally and figuratively reset, come back to center, and move back into your one and precious life with increased clarity and purpose. Hello, I am Christiane Piano, and whether you're a regular listener or it's your first time tuning in, welcome. This week, we're diving into a reflection that's essential for anyone committed to the work of body-mind well-being and cultivating wholeness in their life. Boundaries. It's a foundational topic that kept nudging me, especially seeing how powerfully it resonated with people in a recent BodyMind series that I led. So let's talk about boundaries for a moment, shall we? We often think of boundaries as a separate tool for managing conflict. But I would like to invite you to consider the work of creating, establishing, revising, and maintaining boundaries as a supportive daily practice you can lean into. This practice is something we aren't necessarily taught, and it takes time. But when you learn to shift your relationship to boundaries, you'll find how fruitful and supportive they become, not just for you, but for those you share life with in both your personal and professional domains. So I invite you to pause for a moment and consider this. When you think of boundaries, what is the very first image or feeling that comes up for you? For most people, the immediate association is protection. We often think of boundaries as a wall, a way to defend ourselves and keep difficult things out. And while that's not wrong, I invite you to be open to developing a new relationship to boundaries, as it is a core principle and necessary fundamental to your well-being. Boundaries are a felt experience, not just within us, but they are also felt by others. For example, think of the familiar drop in your stomach when someone asks you for too much, or conversely, when someone tells you no. Do you feel a flash of rejection, or maybe a moment of friction? Learning to notice and respond to these sensations is one of the fundamentals for growth and self-care. This is one of the ways we ensure mutual respect and stay connected to ourselves while navigating life. Today's conversation is an invitation to not only explore your relationship to boundaries, but to begin the work of inviting a body-mind shift by using a key distinction. Are your boundaries a wall of defense or a guide for mindful navigation? Whenever we talk about this kind of shift, it's essential to define the language we use so that we have a shared reference point for the conversation. Let's start this work with what I have found to be the simplest way to think about a boundary. A boundary is simply the container It is a clear edge that says, this is me, and this is not me. This isn't about building walls to shut people out. It's about creating a solid space to come from for healthy, respectful connection. This stance empowers you to define your needs and value, which then allows both you and those who respect you to thrive together. The consistent practice of setting boundaries moves the focus away from old patterns. Instead of letting boundaries be driven by a fear of rejection, or a need for outside validation, the practice is now squarely about affirming your own wholeness and inherent value. This internal stability then allows you to stand on your own 2 feet and choose to engage from a continually ever-increasing space of clarity and inner resilience. People often think this is simply a change in mindset, but what we are exploring is a change in the context, the ontological perspective, which creates the possibility of a new stance. This results in moving from defense to navigation. This new stance is the turning point that matters. It enables a proactive, self-respecting way of showing up. Boundaries are then no longer defensive walls. They become bridges that create clear, safe, and equitable exchanges. This fosters deeper, more genuine connections by preserving your energy and integrity. I was recently reading a passage by the ancient Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, that captures what we are speaking to today so clearly. He said, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest things in the world." Water is the perfect philosophical mirror for a healthy boundary. A wall is rigid. It will eventually crack and shatter under pressure. Water is firmly contained, yet it is flexible. It yields to pressure only to return to its original state. It is not fragile. This is why we say that a healthy boundary isn't a defensive wall you put up once and hope it lasts. It's a dynamic container that allows the flow of life to enter and leave, but only on your terms. This allows you to stay fluid, present, and intact. So now that we have established this reference point, the flexible, integrated boundary we are building, we must address the core issue. Why is this kind of boundary so challenging to establish in the first place, or perhaps so hard to sustain? It's because the difficulty is almost always rooted in a deeper relational knot. When I refer to this relational knot, I'm talking about the fundamental stuckness that begins when you resist the reality of the situation in which you find yourself. This resistance is the core of the issue. The felt experience that there is something that is fundamentally wrong with you, or something essential is missing. This resistance creates a felt experience of a lack, a sense that you are not whole or complete, and this is where the feeling of not being enough, or being inherently flawed, enters. We experience this knot as a tightness in the body, or a persistent, unsolved problem in the mind. This relational knot is the very dynamic that drives you outside of yourself. And this is the essential point for our body-mind work. This fundamental knottedness is registered by your system as both a pervasive thought, a belief that something's wrong, and a fundamental physical defense. This defense shows up on multiple levels, including a shift in your breathing pattern, your emotions, thoughts that dominate your mind, and the way you hold your body in space. This physiological state, where mind and body are locked in defense, is the reality of living in survival mode. Think about that for a moment. How can you build, grow, or heal when a significant portion of your system's resources are being unconsciously directed toward staying safe? The challenge is simple. We cannot fully engage with growth when a subtle yet powerful state of survival is running behind the scenes. Leading body-mind centered research confirms that when we live with chronic stress or unresolved relational issues, our system registers this constant feeling of being wrong as a threat to your existence. This is the physiological reality. So I invite you to take a moment now and check in with yourself. Where does this constant pressure to be right or safe show up in your body? Do you feel it as tightness in your jaw, tension in your shoulders, or a constant clenching in your gut, perhaps? This physical tension is the direct result of the fact that your nervous system cannot relax. It is actively scanning the environment for external reassurance. This leads to what researchers call reliance on external regulation, meaning constant reassurance or compulsive compliance with the wishes of others. This is why, when the relational knot is present, you do not feel safe in your body or connected to your inherent value, and you inevitably look outside of yourself for others to provide that affirmation. This outward seeking is where boundaries fail to be established or are actively disregarded. It can be challenging, and you may even feel some resistance as you listen to these words, because this reflects a deep lack of self-regard, causing your own well-being to become the last priority or even completely disregarded, making self-care challenging and unsustainable. But please know this: it is a protective survival strategy, not a personal failing. Let's now take a moment for you to ground this reflection in your own life. Where do you look for your affirmation? Do you obsess about your weight or your appearance, using external perfection as a shield against insecurity? Is your career or your role as a parent the one thing you depend on to impress people, giving you a sense of external value? Do you put off important projects because you seem to need something other to fulfill you first, a survival mechanism that prioritizes feeling safe over taking action? I invite you to hold those answers in your awareness for a moment. And if none of those questions applied to you, take a pause for a moment and see what comes up for you in this context. You see, you don't need to judge these answers. You can turn them into fertilizer for your own growth right now. And this is what you do with that fertilizer. You make small choices that create space for your well-being, whether that's consciously taking time out, saying no, or just resting. These choices are the direct affirmation of your values, and this is how you actively build a new foundation. This consistent inner practice, I'm going to repeat that, consistent inner practice is what eventually cultivates a new felt sense of worth that shows up outwardly. It's vital to understand that this work of cultivating inner safety is not about mindset or positive thinking. You cannot simply think your way into a sense of inner safety. Safety is a felt, embodied experience that your nervous system registers, and it's built through repeated practice, not just intellectual choice. This is why when you start to grow emotionally, your nervous system begins to seek stability over approval. You stop chasing the rush of being liked and start craving the quiet of simply being real. But here's the reality. This shift has a quiet cost. So the question is, even though you are creating positive change and trying to implement new boundaries, especially in those areas where you've struggled, why does this work often feel so uncomfortable? I call it quiet because it's not a visible setback. It's the internal discomfort, the emotional resistance and potential grief that comes when your system lets go of old, familiar defense patterns. This quiet often feels like loneliness at first, because your brain temporarily mistakes calm for danger. This cost is unavoidable because growth and boundaries are fundamentally inseparable. Think of it like the root system of a tree. The boundaries you set internally, the sense of safety and value, are the deep roots that stabilize the entire organism. You can't have strong upward growth, taking on a new professional challenge, learning a new creative skill, or having that conversation you've been avoiding with a family member, if the roots are shallow and weak. Any expansion will feel precarious and unsafe because you're worried about the entire structure falling over. This is the crucial point, because your internal system has grown accustomed to the safety of that shallow root system. The moment you commit to this new growth, the deepening of the roots, it registers the changing context itself as a threat. It can feel like you're losing something essential, but you're not. You're simply dismantling that old structure of safety, the one built on a persistent need to be externally safe, whether that's by trying to control situations, accommodating others, emotionally withdrawing, or seeking constant approval, to make space for a new integrated structure built on inner safety. That's why the journey can sometimes come with a real sense of resistance or grief. This internal work of building inner safety and comfort doesn't just make external engagement possible. It fundamentally shapes your personal context and how you show up in every relationship. The key then is not the rigid rule or scripted technique you use to set a boundary, but the consistency of the internal commitment. As this consistent inner practice takes hold, you'll naturally notice a change in how you engage with others, and you will know exactly what you need to communicate. The final question we can hold for ourselves as a guide is, how can we remain steady and consistent in this practice, even when our environment pushes back against our new growth? This is the core challenge of lasting integration. Think of it this way. Consistency might look like holding a clear no without feeling the need to over-explain. It might be giving yourself the grace of pausing before you send an immediate reply. Or it could be gently stepping away from a difficult interaction instead of engaging in an old argument. Considering the circumstances you presently find yourself navigating, where could you possibly apply this in your own life? And so as we wrap up this week's reflection, let's synthesize together the 3 key ideas we've explored: growth as roots, boundaries as water, and safety as felt experience. The single most powerful action you can take right now is to begin to curate your environment to match your nervous system's new rhythm, your calm. As you navigate your week and the rest of your life, I invite you to try this simple embodied inquiry, especially when you feel the old push to over-explain or over-perform. Number 1, pause and locate the discomfort, the knot. Where does this request or interaction feel constricting in your body? Number 2, check the source, that is, the roots. Am I responding from the old need for approval or from my new capacity for internal calm? Number 3, choose the action, the water. How can I create a water-like container here, a boundary that is clear and strong, yet flexible and flowing and appropriate for the context? I invite you to explore this practice for yourself with kindness and curiosity. If this process of deepening your boundaries resonates, and you feel ready to move beyond these patterns that required you to abandon yourself, I invite you to consider engaging in the one-to-one body-mind maturation work that I offer. This focused work is designed to help you navigate this complex foundational relationship from a place of deep somatic safety. Thank you for joining me for this reflection on boundaries. I recognize and appreciate you for taking this time out of your busy life to engage in the practice of reflection and growth today. You are not meant to stay understood by everyone. You are meant to stay connected to yourself. When you can do that, you meet peace that lasts. I also invite you to reach out and share what resonated with you from today's discussion, and to share this episode with anyone you know who may benefit from distinguishing between building walls and building bridges. You can find all of my contact details and information in today's show notes. I look forward to connecting with you again next week on YourReset Reflections. If you are interested in working with me on any level of body-mind well-being, whether it be through individual body-mind maturation work sessions, perhaps participating in a series, individual privates, or through my video-on-demand services, if you have questions, if you would like to engage on any level, feel free to schedule a free 15-minute consult in the appointment section, www.christianepiano.com, or email me directly at growth@christianepiano.com.